Let's go over some Spurs news and notes, a draft version you may have missed, and then ask a big question. Buy or sell this whole rumor the Spurs might move up to number one?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Spurs on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back, and hope you're all having a great work week. Almost done. It's almost done. A few more days, and it's the weekend. Hey, what are we talking about today? We're going to be going over some Spurs news and notes, draft style. We can talk to you about a player I spoke with, well, a potential NBA player I spoke with, and then have a game of buy or sell this whole rumor that the Spurs are exploring to move up to number one by packaging 4 and 8. Well, we're going to get into all that in just a few minutes with our guest, Rudy Campos, as well as get into some Locked On Spurs fan comments. Just a heads up, we had a schedule conflict, me and Rudy, so we just couldn't do video. We couldn't do audio. So after this portion, it will be an audio segment with Rudy Campos, but that's just in a few minutes. Hey, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So as y'all can see, we're going to be discussing some Spurs news draft style, and let's kick it off with that. So if you all don't know, I had a chance to talk to several NBA draft prospects, Zachary Richichet, Nikola Topic, and Tidjane Salaun, the French forward that's been booming up mini mocks and everything. We're talking about him today. So I had a chance to talk to him, and of the players I did talk, from Topic to Richichet to a couple of other, none of them said that that the player had any individual contact with the Spurs, except for Tidjane. He told me that he did talk to the Spurs and that he's really good friends with Wemby, and they still communicate till today. And yeah, interesting, huh? Now, the Spurs have, well, they've done it before, pulled a surprising name that nobody expected to go early in the draft. Remember Josh Primo? Everybody was floored, like, what? Who? What? Primo at this number? What's going on here? Wouldn't put it past the Spurs to do the same with Tidjane. He definitely is raw. He's a project player, but if you read the tea leaves, he said to me that the Spurs did talk to him and he spoke with the Spurs. So it'll be interesting to see if the Spurs continue that. The Spurs are very, close to the chest, close to the vest thing they're going. They don't really let their cards out. I'll give an example. DeJounte Murray, he told me the night before he was drafted into the NBA, we didn't know it was going to be the Spurs, but that the Spurs never spoke to him. They didn't even work him out, and they selected him. So it can go either way, but if you're looking for some sort of signs of where the Spurs might be going, hey, Tidjane did tell me that he had communication with San Antonio. Now, look, is he a project player? Probably. He's not NBA ready, but my goodness, he is an athlete. He's a freakish athlete. He's young, 19 years old. Would he be needing some sandpapering to cut down the rough edges? Probably, but I could see the Spurs trying to invest in a player now for their potential prospect future, a la what they almost did with Primo before that went south. Now, in most mock drafts, he is projected around the middle teens, like 15, 14, around there. But the Spurs, would they use 4 and 8 to get him? That might be a reach. Or they could always, trade down, collect several more assets, and maybe trade a number 8 for kind of a late teen pick. That is something they could do. Look, the Spurs can do a lot of stuff on the draft night, and as far as movement, like he's 6'10", he's a forward. French. They're definitely tapping that French market. He averaged 9.5 points per game, 4.0 rebounds, 1 steal in 23 minutes, playing with Cholet Basket in France. So yeah, he's made 75 threes. So he has a 7'2" wingspan. He's definitely an energizer. He is athletic, but that could be a reach at 4, definitely a reach at 8. Well, maybe not. I could definitely see the Spurs getting him at number 8. But hey, he's a hustler. He works hard, and again, that French connection there, him and Wemby. He says that they stay in contact, that they're still friends, and the Spurs reach out to him. So interesting to see what the Spurs will do. Hey, quick side note here. Real fast, I know yesterday I talked about Nikola Topic in my conversations with him. It is official via ESPN. He did suffer, in fact, a ACL tear strain in the knee. So he did say yesterday, well, a couple of days ago, when we all spoke to him, that he was not 100%, that he was focused on rehabbing. So there you have it. It has come out that, yeah, he did suffer a tear in that left knee. That's got to really hurt his draft stock. I hope the Spurs don't get him. If he falls all the way to the second round and the Spurs are there on the board, sure, go for it. But, yeah, tough luck for the kid. But there you have it, a quick kind of a NBA draft prospect note that I'm speaking with Tidjane. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Hey, this draft's going to be very interesting. I always ask the question, when does the draft in this draft begin? You know how they always say, oh, the draft really begins after the third pick. There's not really consensus, so it could be all over the board. We'll see in just a few weeks. Coming up next is Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. We're going to be discussing that recent report/rumor that the Spurs are kind of considering or maybe exploring trading number 4 and 8 and offering it to Atlanta for number 1. We're going to play a game of buy and sell with that and then get into your comments over at the YouTube page. And that's coming up next right here on Locked On Spurs. First, I want to talk to you about Game Time. You want to go to gametime.co right now. Look, Game Time takes the headaches out of finding tickets, makes even getting NBA Finals tickets even easier and faster. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. They got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, view for your seats, lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Not only that, they have event cancellation protection, job loss protection. They got you covered, flash deals, zone deals. Hey, so what's a zone deal? Well, basically, you can save even more by you picking the section and let Game Time pick the seats. What about those flash deals I mentioned? Well, you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the event that you want to go to or game, whatever. Listen, if it's a game, it's a theater event, it's a movie, whatever it is, you need tickets, you want to go to Game Time. And that Game Time low price guarantee, well, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And that Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service in the ticketing business. So there you have it. Go to Game Time right now. Take the guesswork out of everything. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Hey, I want to talk to you about Muslinger's Drive-Thru Coffee. Go there right now if you're in San Antonio, 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive. That's in the 281 to 1604 area. They're open every single day, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. You need a latte, you need cold brew, you need, what else do you got? Oh, you need dairy alternatives. Perhaps you need caffeine-free drinks, or maybe their signature coffee drink, the Muslinger. They have it there and so much more, including mini donuts. Follow them on social media at Muslinger SATX. They're always constantly turning out new drink items. They already released their drink of the month. Go check it out. It looks like it's going to be very good. I can't wait to get my hands on them and try that in these hot San Antonio days. Friendly staff, great menu. By the way, they have a lightning bolt series that includes the Alien, which is a nod to Victor Wembanyama. Well, they're usually made with Red Bull, and that option will still be there for you, but the default will be Lotus Energy. 7 power plant extracts, gives the same kind of effect as Red Bull caffeine, but with those 7 power plant extracts. Again, Red Bull will be available. You just got to ask for it, but the default will be Lotus Energy. Gives them more flexibility to make new drinks. Hey, they'll power you throughout the day. Go get one right now. San Antonio, 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive, open every single day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Life is too short for bland coffee.
A Jedi uses the Force. To subscribe to Locked On Spurs, pass on what you have learned.
All right, and we're now joined by Rudy Campos, host of Sweep the League. Check that out on YouTube. By the way, Rudy, congratulations. I hear your show is just taken off now that it's, I guess, restarted.
Yeah, I've been rebranded basically. We've gone through a couple of rebrands, but this time it's solely on our own, and we've launched and it's taken off really well. Appreciate all the fan support and appreciate everybody for tuning in whenever we go live for Sweep the League.
Yeah, exactly. Again, make sure to follow Rudy on X at Sweep the League. Do that right now. Unfortunately, Rudy and our work schedules just conflicted, and we can only get a show going through audio. So we'll be back tomorrow with a full video show right here on Locked On Spurs. So why is Rudy here today? Well, everybody's been reacting to this. It's been kind of taken off. I started the wildfire, Rudy. Let's just admit it. I started the wildfire with this topic. Basically, for those of y'all who did not know, ESPN's draft expert, Jonathan Givony, was talking about LeBron James's son, Bronny. And buried in that conversation, they were talking about draft teams that could move up, could move down. And lo and behold, he dropped the nugget saying that there are rumblings that the Spurs are considering, debating whether or not they should move 4 and 8 first-round picks for the number 1 pick owned by Atlanta. Let's just say, Rudy, that took off. Spurs fans were reacting. It went viral. Before we, get into some scenarios here, what was your reaction when you first heard that report / rumor that the Spurs could consider moving 4-8 for number 1?
Honestly, my first reaction was it was comical. Everybody in the league knows how this draft is. It's not a very really good draft class at all. And I have to always repeat myself when I say that, because it's not that it's a disrespect to any players in the draft, but there's just not that instant superstar or instant true impact. There's going to be an all-star type of player right away. Now they all could develop into a possible superstar, all-star type player. But for me, it was comical because you're whether you're drafting at 1 or you're drafting at 10, a lot of these guys in the lottery are interchangeable. There's not one clear-cut number 1 guy where if you're drafting Alex Sarr at number 1, I mean, you can set the same type of talent at number 8 where the Spurs have their second pick. So the idea of them wanting to possibly trade up to number 1, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. But I just found it comical when I saw you reporting it.
Yeah. Well, for me, my reaction was, yeah, right. Nothing against Gavoni and anything. I know he does great work covering the draft prospects. But my thought was, yeah, right. Not at him, but yeah, right. That the Spurs would leak this, like somebody would leak this about the Spurs. Because the Spurs are a vault. And historically, the Spurs don't make major moves on draft day, leading up to it. I mean, the last surprise was maybe Josh Primo getting picked early in the first round by San Antonio. But so my first round was like, okay, sure, whatever. Your sources inside saying that, but Spurs don't really let a lot of stuff leak out. You have to either be contacted by them or a player tells you something directly, kind of like what Jeremy Sohan did with the Spanish show that he was on, talking about revealing what they talk about inside. That was your insider. You can't get more insider than a player in the draft rebuild. But as far as this, you're right. Why? See, for me, even if it is true, Rudy, why would you want to take one bite of the apple? Why don't you take 2 bites of the apple? What about that idea? Sure, trade up for number 1. But even if you do that, let's just say their target was Sarr. Doesn't that kind of throw a wrench in where Wemby's slotted? Is Sarr going to want to play a 4? Does Wemby want to go back to a 4 and then Sarr 5? To me, that doesn't work out.
It doesn't work out, I guess, on paper, but does it work on the court? I'm sure the Spurs could definitely find a way to get a Sarr-Wemby combination work on the court, but with we're not gonna pretend that we don't see the obvious elephant in the room. There are so many positions on this team, and that you have to get filled. Obviously, Wemby is the cornerstone, and he's gonna be the front court guy you need. But knowing you have Trey Jones as your primary point guard, you've seen the inconsistencies, even with Devin Vassell. I mean, yeah, he's probably their second best player, but the consistency of Devin Vassell is really, one thing that Spurs fans in the front office and everybody have to keep their eye on. So you've got a lot of holes that have to be filled with this team still. So having 2 picks in the first round, within the first 10 picks of the draft, makes more sense because you can add a couple of players, whether they're going to eventually be starters or they're going to be eventually, the 6th, 7th, 8th man off the bench. You're able to fill these roster positions a little bit better. Now, bringing in 2 guys does hurt because then you've got to go into free agency knowing you're probably going to lose 2 players. So who do you get rid of. More than likely, the guys that you've been hearing about are Devontae Graham, Cedi Osman's another guy that's probably not going to be a Spurs, probably going to go on to another contender. But that's the part I see, is that one pick's not going to make a difference. 2 picks is really not going to make that much of a difference either. But you're able to fill more positions on the team that you're lacking.
Yeah. And look, let's just say the Spurs. Put it this way: let's say the Spurs are not targeting Sarr. It would make more sense for Risha Shea. I can see that because he would fill in around Wemby, and a swingman. I did speak with him a couple of days ago, and he told me that he has not had any direct contact with the team, but that he is aware that the Spurs were scouting him, and that his agent spoke to the Spurs and several other teams that were there scouting Risha Shea. But you didn't hear that about Sarr. Not once did you hear anybody, I mean, to my knowledge, and maybe you might know, Rudy, but I did not see any report that the Spurs were out scouting Sarr. Risha Shea seems to be the one that's been on their target for quite some time. I can understand that, but you look at Atlanta's situation, I think they probably need a big. Maybe Spurs don't trade up for 1. What about trading up for number 2? What do you think about that?
Again, if it's costing you both draft picks, probably not. I mean, the biggest thing that people got to realize is, the one thing that's I mentioned is the fact that you're going to get the same, you're going to get the same talent anywhere in this top 10. So if you really want your guy at 2 because he's not going to be there when you're picking at 4 or 8, then yeah, I mean, if you really, really are in love with Sarr, if you really, really are in love with Risha Shea, then go get him. I mean, if you have the opportunity, go get him. If that is the number 1 guy and it's, all in with this person, then by all means, go get him. I have no problem with that if that's what they want to do. It shows the Spurs being aggressive, but again, does it make you a playoff team? No. Does it make you a play-in team? Probably not. Does it add more wins? It may add another 4, maybe 6, 7 wins if you do that and if you are aggressive. But what does it really do, Jeff? It moves the needle in the sense of this fan's perspective, where okay, they're aggressive, so they're trying to do something, they're trying to win now, and that's kind of the perspective that I see when it comes to trying to trade up for a 1 or 2 in the draft.
Yeah. Ultimately, I don't buy it completely. I don't see the Spurs doing that. I still think the Spurs are going to select that 4 and 8. And then move on with the day until the next day, second round. But I think the only way they move 4 and 8, Rudy, is if they get an established all-star player. I'm using this as an example. Phoenix, they don't have any picks for how long? So, what if they dangle one of their power players, Devin Booker? What if they really want to blow it up already? The Spurs at 4 and 8, and we can give you some players. Look at Brooklyn, the same thing. They don't have picks for quite some time. What do they got? They want to offer San Antonio. So I think it'll go to that level before they consider moving 4 and 8. But you're right. In a watered down draft, why would you want to give up pretty good positions? You got 2 bites at the apple that you can either flip, as I mentioned, for another player, an established veteran. And for me, Rudy, I think that is more of a precedent than a young prospect in a bad draft. Is just bringing in solid veteran that can help immediately, like a Lauri Markkanen. You mentioned that a lot of time on Sweep the League. Imagine I would be okay. They use 4 and 8 to get Lauri. What do you think about that?
That was something that we did mention on Sweep the League recently, and Lauri's a guy that I've targeted for the San Antonio Spurs for a very long time, back when he was with the Bulls. And if you remember correctly, when DeMar was being traded to the Bulls, I was hoping they would be able to get Lauri in return. But yeah, I mean, using 4 and 8 to trade up to get Lauri Markkanen, or to trade for Lauri Markkanen, is beneficial for both teams, in my opinion, because you can also add Keldon Johnson to that list. Maybe throw even possibly a Devontae Graham their way as well, plus the draft picks. Now, from what I was looking at, the way I would probably do this deal is 4-8 this year, Keldon Johnson, and then the Spurs 2025 pick, their own pick next year. That is something I feel for the Jazz is very enticing, because you're technically in a rebuild. You have Colin Sexton as your point guard. You have John Collins there, so you still have two young guys. Adding two young guys from this year's draft, plus getting a 2025 pick from the Spurs, knowing that it's probably not going to be a low pick. It might be anywhere between, I would say, late lottery to maybe around the 18-19 range. So I think something like that is enticing for Utah. But yeah, you're right. Using these picks to possibly get a veteran who can come in and help Wemby develop, help the young guys develop, but also add a couple more wins to the team makes a lot more sense for me. But yeah, I mean, Lauri Markkanen in a Spurs uniform, that probably instantly adds. That would probably put them in the 30 to 32 win range, I guess, at best for me.
Yeah. I think that'll be the move if the Spurs want to move their current 4 and 8 picks. Because even at that, you look at Nikola Topic, who told everybody a couple of days ago that he's not 100%, that all he's doing right now is focus on rehab. That's not good leading up to the draft. And you mentioned it, it's watered down. Is there really a consensus number 1 pick? No, not really. Is there any difference from 1 and 2 to the Spurs pick 4 and 8? Not really. Could the Spurs feel needs with those picks? Sure. Need a shooter. I'm making this up. Reed Richards. Look at me. I'm nerding out right now. Reed Shepherd is there for you. Do you need a point guard? Okay, sure. Dillingham, is there. But you look at mocks almost daily, and it fluctuates so much. How they say, Rudy, the draft really begins after the 3rd pick. Well, in this draft, I feel like the draft doesn't begin till it begins. Like, seriously. Say, after Scoot, Wemby, and Miller, okay, now the draft really begins. In this draft, do you really feel that vibe, Rudy?
Man, the draft probably for this one, it doesn't really start right away, to be honest, man. It's just going to kind of be a draft where you're walking into, and whatever happens. There's so much uncertainty, and you're right. I'm going to agree with you on that. It just starts when it happens. When they announce the first pick, it's the draft time. There's no guarantee any player is going number 1 because everyone's pointing to Sarr. Everybody's pointing to Reece Arcier right now. For all we know, Atlanta could trade down and somebody is trying to get up there because they feel that, Klingon is probably number 1. So in this draft going in, there's favorites of teams, but I guarantee you every big board is filled with at least 15 guys on their board. Even Atlanta at number 1 probably has a minimum of 5-6 players that they're looking at number 1 right now. So honestly, I think the draft starts in the 2nd round. If we're going to be brutally honest, I think the 1st round is just going to kind of be a ho-hum type thing. It's those gems you can find in the 2nd round, not named Bronny James, but there's going to be a few gems out there in the 2nd round who are going to be able to make a few of these teams. And I think that's where you're going to start to really see the GMs for these teams and also the scouts come out and say, okay, these are the players that we really need to look at. So for me, it's 2nd round is when I'm starting to think, okay, I'm going to really pay attention to the draft.
All right, so ultimately, are you buying or selling this report that the Spurs are looking at and possibly moving up to number 1?
100% selling.
Okay.
There's no way that anybody should buy this rumor.
I'm with you right there. I don't think anybody should buy the rumor. I think it's just food for thought and barbershop talk, and it can help the offseason go by a little faster. But other than that, I just don't see it. Again, if the Spurs are going to move. Now, if the report was, the Spurs are moving 4 and 8 for Lauri Markkanen, let's rock and roll. That's what are we waiting for? Gift wrap them to Utah right now. Send them overnight Federal Express. Do what you got to do. But to move up in the draft, I'm going to sell with you. I'm with Rudy Campos. I'm selling as well. Hey, we're not done talking. When we get back, we're going to talk about you guys, Locked On Spurs fans, and the comments you're leaving at the YouTube page. Shocker, it's all about the draft. So stay tuned. That's coming up next right here on Locked On Spurs. I want to talk to you about PrizePicks. You got to get PrizePicks right now. It's America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It is the most fun, exciting way to get in on the action while you can, and you can watch your favorite sports and players and have some fun with PrizePicks. You just pick more or less than on 2 to 6 more or player stats and their projections, and that'll give you a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Look, there's so many things you could do with the PrizePicks app. For example, well, it's available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. PrizePicks even offers injury insurance so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured this basketball season. If you have a player who exits the game in the first half, does not return in the second, well, guess what? PrizePicks will have your back and not count that as a loss. Look, you even make a deposit, let's say, of $10. You can receive an instant $10 in bonus. If you have the skills, you can play for a shot and turning your $10 into $1,000. They got it all there. You got to get the PrizePicks app right now. Hey, look, it's really simple to use. It's intuitive, very, very user-friendly. Go get it right now. Download the Game Time app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's Game Time right now. Go download it. The code is LOCKEDONNBA. First deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy.
Oh, hey, this is Morty Smith and Cheese. You are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia. Cheese.
And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Rudy Campos himself, host of Sweep the League. Go check it out on YouTube right now. Go subscribe to it. They are climbing the charts. You got Gio, you got Tuas, you got one of the Gervin, you got Derek Gervin, yeah. Derek Gervin there with them. So what more do you need? It's a great show. Rudy will talk about that in just a few minutes. And it's time for you guys, the Locked On Spurs fans. You guys are leaving a lot of comments. We're going to pick two. So let's see what's in the mailbag today. Rudy, the first one is all about the process. Now, on yesterday's Locked On Spurs, we discussed Sohan's remarks that he's trusting in the process. Should the Spurs fan base trust the rebuild process as well? And this comment comes from Civ Tex. He says, Rudy, as fans, we must trust the process. In a positive note, the process has produced chips, a winning season, and good players. Go Spurs, go. So this Spurs fan is all about the rebuild and trusting the process. What about your thoughts? Should Spurs fans trust this current process the Spurs are going through?
I believe you have no choice but to trust the process. If you're trying to rush something, it's not going to work out. And I get it. You know, we've had many multiple generational talents all the way from George Gervin when he debuted in San Antonio to David Robinson making the instant impact for the San Antonio Spurs, all the way to Tim Duncan, who started bringing in the titles for San Antonio. But mentioned tons of times with you, Jeff, this process is a little bit different. Wimmy didn't come into a veteran-laden, roster. He came into a very young roster. They were, the youngest team in the NBA last year. So it's going to take time. This is a process that you've got to, allow it to just form. And that's something that I think Spurs fans are not ready to do. Agree with the comment. Trust the process. I'm going to say it a million times more. The season of 2025, 2026 is the one I feel where you start to see a turn. People say, oh, that's too late. That's too late. No, it's got to happen now. Nothing good happens overnight. It's very rare instant success happens overnight. Give it a little bit of time, and I feel that the Spurs are going to be on the right path here in the next couple of years.
For me is you got no choice. We can't walk into the Brian Wright's office and say, do this and do that to rush this thing. You got no choice. You're going to have to wait. And if this is the approach they're going to take, this is the approach they're going to take. And they've pretty much made it clear from Brian Wright to Jeremy Sohan recently when he said that they're going to be using patience in this rebuild process. So, Brian Wright saying it to you, Sohan is saying it to you. They're taking a slow approach to it. Now, again, I'm
sorry. Can I mention one thing? You mentioned about Brian Wright, and I just want to say something real quick here. Is I think what fans need to understand is you have Wembanyama. How many fans really believe that other GMs are contacting Brian Wright, trying to give them their stars and their superstars to play with Victor Wembanyama? They see the type of player he is. Why are you wanting to help the Spurs rebuild right away by shipping off, a Devin Booker or anybody like that? They don't want to see the Spurs being instant successfully, right away. So a lot of it's going to be done probably through free agency. And that's why that's why you're saying trust the process. It's going to take time because teams are not lining up to send their best players to San Antonio.
Yeah, Spurs had decades of dominance. So you think you want to see other NBA teams helping that another decade of dominance? And if they do, they're going to play hardball. They're going to want a nice haul back. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, again, Spurs fans, I know you want to see this happening. Guess what? It probably is going to be another season of missed playoffs. Rudy, I think you said on Sweep, you're thinking maybe it may be a play-in season. I don't think it'll get there. I think it'll still be a missed play-in and playoff scenario.
Yeah.
But I do expect marked improvement. I do expect somewhere 30-ish wins next season. Hey, look, you can't go anywhere else but up after last season. But if you're going to trust the process, Spurs fans, well, trust it a little while longer. All right, the next comment is from Little Mac. He says, if the Spurs want a score-first, athletic-y, freakish, small defensive liability point guard, they'll draft Rob Dillingham. Why give up massive resources and huge contract for Trae Young? So he's saying like, hey, just stick with, drafting Dillingham as your point guard of the future. What do you think about that? If the Spurs were to announce, or in this case, Adam Silver announced the Spurs selected Rob Dillingham, would you be okay with that?
So first off, shout out, man. I love the profile name, Little Mac. It's obviously the Mike Tyson Punch Out reference right there. So love that. Shout out to him. But the Dillingham thing, I've never bought into it. I won't buy into it. Him and Reed Shepherd out of Kentucky, I just don't buy into a lot of that. He mentioned about a great defender. I mean, Dillingham is a very erratic defender. He needs to really work on his defensive game. So you're not getting a defender in Rob Dillingham. What you are getting is a guy he's a bucket getter. He's very electric. He can handle the ball. He's a pull-up threat. He can get to the paint. He's a very good scorer. But the thing that people have to remember is that he's very undersized. He's 6'1", and I say undersized, I don't mean it in a bad way. But for the type of player he is, he's a 6'1" player with a 6'7" game, if that makes any sense. A scorer, yes. A shooter, yes. But I feel in the NBA he's going to have a tough time scoring a whole lot like he did at Kentucky. So I'm not buying the Rob Dillingham pick at 4 or 8. If the Spurs trade down, I've got Dillingham right around that 12 to 17 mark right now. Some team's going to reach for him, I'm pretty sure. Hopefully it's not the Spurs, but I'm really not buying it right now. There's better scorers out there. Dalton Knecht, who I've been high on, is a big-time scorer. Even Stephon Castle makes a lot more sense. Yeah, he's not much of a scorer right now, but he does get to the basket. The only thing he lacks is Dillingham shooting, but he's a better defender. So we kind of got to give way to something. But no, I'm not on the Dillingham bandwagon.
Wow, Rudy, look at that! And he's not even a dookie, and you just smoked him right now with that. At this point of the draft, I'm like, whoever you get, Spurs is whoever you're gonna get. Yeah, because I don't think there's gonna be like, oh my God, you missed out on this guy. What were you thinking? You passed him up. And I'd be like, all right, cool. That's who you got. That's who you got. And if Dillingham is Dillingham. There were reports recently that the Spurs were have him high on their draft board and whatnot. But yeah, you get Dillingham, great. You get Dalton Knecht, fine. You get God, can you imagine Topic? Can you imagine that? Rudy, would you be flipping tables if the Spurs selected Topic?
I definitely would. Because as high as I was on them drafting him at number 4, the injury is really, really concerning. And I think reports are coming out that it's seriously a little more serious than originally thought. So definitely drafting Topic right now, I would be really upset. In fact, I'm hoping Topic actually withdraws from the draft and stays overseas for another year, because I don't see him going anywhere in the lottery right now.
No, I do as well. But hey, if Dillingham's your guy and he's on your board, everybody, you never know, the Spurs could get him. Hey, we're done talking. We want to hear from you. What do you think about, well, the Spurs reportedly trying to get number 1? Are you buying or selling that report? And where do you stand with the fan comments from Dillingham to trusting the process? We got to know Rudy brag about Sweep the League. We need to know how to subscribe, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so it's Sweep the League TV on YouTube. Be sure to go and subscribe, hit that notification button. We're normally going in the evenings now. We're doing a lot of evening shows. Sometimes we do some afternoon shows as well, but we're gearing up for the NBA draft. We are actually going to probably do go back to our roots and start covering the first round of the NBA draft live, streaming with some draft analysts, and also just giving you all the picks from one, all the way to the end of the first round. Basically, we may even get into some second round picks as well. But yeah, just go to YouTube, search Sweep the League TV, subscribe, hit that notification button. We're having a lot of fun. Again, appreciate everybody who has been joining in. Our growth has been unreal. We just want to continue to provide the best coverage around.
Absolutely. That's why you subscribe right now and follow Rudy on X at Sweep the League. It's a fun show. Trust me, it's fun. Every time I see him on and I jump in, I ask some questions to the guys, get the conversation going. And then it's just fun. It's really fun. And they're very interactive, and they will read your comments live as they do their thing. Again, that's Sweep the League. Follow him on X at Sweep the League. And we'll be back tomorrow. Don't know what we're going to be talking about tomorrow, but likely to be a lot more silver and black talk, probably some draft talk, all that good stuff as the NBA draft nears. And make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today, 24/7 streaming channel only on YouTube. Go do that right now. So for Rudy Campos, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.